Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and in this video, we're going to learn how to use ECR. So ECR is not particularly difficult. It's the container registry service where we're going to be able to push our containers. So what I'm going to want to do is go over to our AWS examples. And I actually do have a couple of junk apps in here that I'm going to go ahead and just delete because I don't need them anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete them. But you might have stuff in here, you may not. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to launch up our AWS examples repo. You launch this in whatever you want to work in. I'm working in Gitpod here today. It's already pre-configured with AWS credentials. And I need some kind of base application because I figure if we're going to do containers, we're going to want to deploy something. And I want to do something that's a little bit more than Apache server. So I'm going to make a new directory here. I'm going to call it ECR. And in here, what I want to do is just create a README for now. Okay. And I want to get some code together. So I'm just going to go ahead and just make an app folder here. And I ran this bootcamp in 2023, and we had a base application for a backend Flask app. And in one of the weeks, we already had set up the Docker container. So I'm going to go to week X where I have the full setup. And what we'll do is we'll extract some of the code out of there because it's pretty darn good. So yeah, here I have the application, and so we are making a containerized app, so we need a Docker file. So I'm going to click into here, and so here is the Docker file contents. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to make in here a Docker file. And if you want to know Docker really well, I teach it in my Kubernetes course and other places here, but we're going to just jump into this one and get this configured. So that's step one. So we have the Docker file, then we need the app itself. And I don't need all of this code. I need a very basic application. So what I'm going to do is jump into week 0, where I have way less code, and I have a simpler Flask application. So I'm just going to zoom in here and grab some stuff. So I know we want Flask, we want requests, we might want cores. We'll grab the OS in here. Just call this app.py for now. I usually work in Ruby, but I seem to do okay in most other frameworks. We're going to want to create our app Flask application here. Okay, and just carefully looking through this, we could set up cores. I mean, this is if we're going to do something cross-origin, and we're not really going to do that. So I'm just going to take this out for now. We'll keep it simple. So just carefully reading through this code, what we want to extract out here. And so this is where we would actually define stuff. So here's an example of us getting data. So this looks like a pretty good example for one. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I want to just make an endpoint called hello. And we'll treat this like it's an API. So let's just say hello. And we have our get here. And this is a get request. So I wouldn't mind getting like a query string or something in here, which there's an example of us getting something out of here. So maybe we'll grab this one as an example. And we will do this. We'll just say name here. Okay. And I'll grab this here to get the actual value. If you don't know what's going on, it's totally fine. I mean, once you start working with these frameworks, you start to learn them over time. And they start to make sense. But for now, it's not that big of a deal. And we want to return back some JSON. So there might be like an example of JSON somewhere in here. So I'm just looking for an example where we create JSON. I know in an earlier week we should have JSON in here. Yeah. Let me just go look into one of these model folders. That's how I learned how to build applications, is I would just dig through other people's code until it started making sense. But what I'm looking for is just the structure of the data. So this is just basically a dictionary. And I'm going to go over to maybe messages here because some return it as a model, errors and data. So yeah, it's just a, it's nothing fancy there. It's literally just returning back that object. Okay. So we'll go back over to here. And so model is really just something that looks like this, errors. And then we have data. Okay. And then we'll just say name or message here. Hello. I'm trying to remember how to do interpolation. I think it's like this. Hello, and then we'll put our name. It'll just say invalid, name not provided. We'll say name not provided. So in the case that there is no name, we will go ahead and return this. Okay. This looks okay so far. We don't really have any error handling here, so let's just say if name. My Python's not the best, so Python check for null or empty string. And here they just have if not or empty. So again, I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. So if not. Empty strings are falsy, which means they are considered false in a Boolean statement. Oh, okay. So just say if model errors, if there are any. So the idea is that we have our data, right? And if there's an error, we want to add to the model the error. We'll just do model here like this. And data like this. And so the idea is that what do dictionaries look like? Again, I don't work in Python every day, but once I get rolling here, it's not that big of a deal. But I just want to see, yeah, it's double quotations around it. So we'll go here. And I guess the idea is like, we only want to define that if we need an error. So what I'm going to do here, sorry, this is a mess, but we'll have model. And this will just have curlies here. And then model errors. Here will be this. And we only have one error, so we'll do that. But really, if there's multiple errors, we should probably pass it as a an array here of errors. We only have one, so we'll just keep it simple. Okay, and so that will be if we have that. Then we'll have this, so if we have data, we'll do this. Okay, and so that should be enough for us to for this to work. So it looks okay to me. And this looks like a simple application. Now, normally at the bottom of this, you'd have to probably do something additional. Here it is. We actually have to run it. So we're going to go ahead and just copy this here. We'll go all the way down to the bottom. And we'll paste this in here. Okay. And yep, that looks good to me. It looks like it might be suggesting there's an error there. Unexpected curly. Oh, I don't see one. Oh, you know what it is? It's probably because I have to do this. I'm going to do doubles because that's what you're supposed to do. All right. Okay, there we go. And that should resolve that error. It still doesn't like something. So I'm just going to speed myself through this. Again, this is like the one use case where I'd use ChatGPT. So I'm going to go over to ChatGPT here. I'm going to say, you know, fix my code and see if it can quickly resolve any issues I'm having, because I don't want to goof around here all day with this. There we go, and there we have some fixes. It actually took the @ sign out, which actually makes sense because when we wrote this application, that @ sign was specifically for handles to kind of mimic what it looks like for, what do you call it, Twitter, because that was the clone that we were building. It's suggesting that we go up here and we just take errors and then define them as none. It's not a bad idea. We don't need this around here. It doesn't make sense, the name not name. I guess that kind of makes sense. And also name was spelled wrong, so we'll go ahead and fix that. Let's see what else there is. That looks fine. That looks fine. This is supposed to have doubles, which it does. So that looks fine so far. It's suggesting that we run this line as such. Okay. But again, still having an issue right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to point blank copy this. I just want this to work. Seems like I'm missing something here. What was it? I can't even tell. Again, just going to check again. I don't know, it still seems like we have an error here, but line 15. All right, just give me a second. I'm going to pause here for a second. All right, so I just told ChatGPT exactly what the error was, and it said, here you go. But now I have a problem here, and it's still happening. So, again, I don't know if there actually is a problem here, and it's just confused. But the point is that we will try to run this application and find out, okay? So what I want to do is maybe try to run this locally. We do have Python already installed here. I have to give this a refresh. My terminal is being unresponsive, but we want to make sure that we can run it maybe locally and then in a container, and then we will look at pushing it because we don't want to find out we have a basic application that does not work. We'll give this a moment here. I'm going to go ahead and type in Python. Go into the ECR directory here, and we'll cd ECR, please. There we go. And I'm just going to type in Python version. And so I want to go ahead and create a requirements.txt because we're going to need that. Requirements.txt. And in here, I'm going to want Flask. And we'll go ahead and do an install. I always forget these commands, so I can just write them out here. So install requirements. It should be pip install -r requirements.txt. Okay, so that will install that in the app directory. So we'd cd into app here. We'll copy that again. It wasn't copying properly. Right click, paste, enter. Okay, and so that should install Flask. Good. And so we want to run without a container. I believe all we have to do here is run Python app.py. In Ruby, you'd have to use an intermediate thing to do that. So it's saying Flask is not fine because we didn't require it. Okay, so if we go back to our example here, we have our requirements. Oh no, that's our, no, we have our import here? No, we don't. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab this again. Do we use a request here? I'm not even sure if we do. I'm gonna go ahead and grab this again. Maybe we should have took out our requirements, and ChatGPT is taking out our good stuff. I don't think we're using OS anywhere here, but generally it's used quite often, so I don't mind leaving it in here. We do want requests in there because that's going to provide some magic underneath. We don't need cores. So we'll go ahead and run this again. And so now our server is running on port 5000. I'm gonna make it public. Okay, this should start the app on port 5000. And so the next thing we'll want is we'll want to make sure we can test the endpoint. So the way we can do that is we can do curl localhost. Should be curl. And this is not binding to port 000, so I'm not sure if we're going to run into an issue with that because we do really want it to bind to 000. But we'll not worry about that this moment here. But I'll just match the, well, we'll do localhost for now. And so this will be localhost 5000. And we'll say API hello. We'll see if we get back a response here. So go to another tab. And we get a 404, which is not bad. I mean, we're getting somewhere here. And I think the thing is, like, you can't get to this unless there actually is something. So it would always return a 404 because it's not a valid string. So our none error is not really useful per se. But what we'll do is go ahead and try this and say, hello, Andrew. We'll paste this in and hit enter. So we get our message back. I kind of wish this was the just in the query string as opposed to the way we're doing it here. Also, I'm noticing that we didn't have to do the request because in my other one here, I will utilize request args get. I think that's if we don't have this here. So what I'm going to do, because we have the name right here, right? Yeah, I think that's what I want to do instead. So instead of grabbing the name this way, I'm actually going to take it out of this here. Okay. And we'll use the query string to grab it. So we'll go ahead and paste it in as such. And we'll say name. And we'll say name. Okay, and so now the idea is that, because I want to have one where we get an error, just for fun. And oh, did we stop the app? Oh, it hit a problem. It's probably because we need those. I was thinking we're doing Ruby here. Okay, and so we will go back over to, yeah, that's fine. We'll be on that port. So go ahead and try this again. So here we're getting an error. So it should be returning a 422 for that, which is great. And then we'll just say question mark name equals Andrew. Okay, Andrew Brown. Normally you have to have like something like a plus here. There we go. And so that is now working as expected. The only thing I'd like to do here is put an exclamation mark on the end. And so we have our working application. So we'll go here and we'll have this and we'll have name equals Andrew. Okay, Andrew Brown. All right, so now that we have our, I'm going to test it one more time. Now that we have our working application, we want to containerize it. So I have this Docker file, and generally when you have Docker files, you want to have some kind of image. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just type in Python Docker Hub. So we can go ahead and get official Python images. And so this is where we can grab our Docker image. And so we have different versions of it here. I don't know what Bookworm is. I usually go with Bullseye. But there is a key difference between this. It's just they build them differently. Or Slim, sorry. I think we're using Slimbuster. So I'm going to stick with Slimbuster. And basically, when you use these things, they just have different things in them, right? So like Bullseye will have other stuff in it. And I'm not seeing Buster, so maybe Buster's an older version. But maybe we should take a look at what the difference is here. Okay, Bookworm versus Buster versus whatever, and see if we can get some examples. Maybe it has to do with releases of Debian, so Debian release names. Okay, so that's what it is. So I was probably using Debian 10, and so that's why I was so used to seeing Buster. So we have Bullseye, and then we have Bookworm. So Bookworm is what we're going to want to use here today. I'm going to go with the Slim version because I really do want this image to be as small as possible. So I'm looking here for Slim. Now this says RC, which means release candidate. That means that it's not necessarily ready to be utilized. And so we really should use this version, 3.13.06a. And so that's what I'm going to use here today. Okay. And the way we will end up utilizing that is I'm just going to go ahead and grab its name here. Or actually, hold on, I'm going to just zoom in here. Yeah, I want this version here, where it's not the release candidate. And we'll go back over to here, and the idea is that we should be able to say from. And I think by default it goes to Docker Hub. But we'll find out if we run this. But anyway, the idea is we have our base image, and then we want to say where the working directory is in. I'm going to call it app. The reason I called that backend Flask was that I was building many variants of that application. I just wanted to have consistency here. We want to copy over the requirements.txt. We want to install the stuff. We want to copy over the contents of the container. It explains what it is, and we want to expose the port. This has to be set for some reason. I can't remember why. There was a very important reason as to why. I think it had to do with logging. So if we did not set it, then we'd have a delay in logging. It was very frustrating. And then this is the command here, simplify, but then we have it here. You'll notice that we're starting this on port 4567. I don't know if it will automatically pick up the port here. I'm going to go back to our code and take a look. I just want to see if we actually configure port anywhere here. We do not, so I think it's just going to pick up that port. And so even though it starts on the default 5000, I want to do it on 4567 because more applications seem to normalize on that one for backends. 3000, 4567, or things like that. And so this, in theory, should build our application. So the next thing we want to do is build our container. Build image. And, you know, I don't remember this stuff constantly, but I do write it down. So I'm going to go to my bootcamp, and I'm going to go into our Docker week, because that's going to just give us all the code that we want here. And I believe it's under 2, maybe 2 again here. You should always reuse code as much as you can because it just saves you time. And maybe it's in, I wanted to go 2, week 2, I believe. Week 2. Or I think I might have merged out all my my documentation to the top level here. And so I'm just going to get back to my main app here. Sorry. And if I go to week 2, I think that's when we were doing Docker. No, that's distributed tracing. Week 2 is week 1. Yeah, sorry. For those who did the boot camp, they know that frustration. But in here, we should have some commands. Yeah, and so we want to be able to build our container. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this one. And this one's going to be app. And in the app directory, okay. I need to make sure that I'm in the ECR directory before I do that. Clear. We'll go ahead and build that. And so here it has an issue because it doesn't know what it is. If I scroll up to here, notice it just says Python : whatever. So maybe we're missing the word Python in front of it. Go back to this container. Yeah, we are. So it doesn't really know what it wants. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, Python : And I think that's what we did here. Yep, that looks good. Let's go ahead and see if that resolves our issue. So what it's going to do is pull down this image, and then it's going to build the image based on that. While we're waiting, let's just take a look at the next step. So we're going to want to run that container. And so here's that line there, I believe. Okay. And I'm going to go down here. We'll just say run the container. And this one's going to be called app. All right, so it's pulled down the image. If I do Docker images, I think it will list out. Yeah, we have app here. I'm not sure why it's not showing this one because the top level one was downloaded. But anyway, we have an image here. And so let's go ahead and see if we can run this. I hit enter. Okay, and so now it's open on 4567. I'm going to make that public. We'll go ahead and test for local app. For local container app. And so we'll do the same thing, but this time we are going to do this on 4567. And this part can be a bit tricky because you have to do port forwarding to be able to access this. So like I'm doing this on Gitpod, and Google Cloud Spaces and other ones kind of automate that process, opening ports and doing forwarding. But understand that for you, you might have to do a bit more work if you're doing this locally, and I'm not teaching that here. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop this, and we'll go ahead and curl this. It will hit enter, and notice that it is working on 4567, so it's running in a container. If you're in VS Code, you go here on the left-hand side, you can actually see the container running here, and it shows our images. So there is our image. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, we have the image there, but the thing is that before we push it, there's something that we'll have to do, which is we really don't want to push this image based off this one, because when this image needs to build, it has to always build from here. And so what will happen is that if you reference a Docker Hub image, there could be throttling, so that like when ECR is pulling this particular image or something else is pulling this particular image, you might run into just issues where you can't build. And so the best practice is that whatever your base image that you want to use is, push that to ECR, and then you can always build from that one, okay? Because what I'm talking about is like automated systems. So we're building here, but imagine we set up a pipeline using like code build to build our image every time we do git ops and we do a push. It will always pull from Docker Hub, and it could become unavailable. So we want to, again, push that to our ECR repo. So that will be the first thing that we're going to do. So what we'll want to do is create a repo. I don't want to really create it through the UI here, but I just want to show you that we make it either private or public. We're going to have a repository name. We're going to scan on push, KMS options. So those are our options there. We will come back to the UI once we push it. But what I'm going to do is go over to AWS ECR CLI, and we'll go look up what commands we need to do this. And it's just create repos. So I'm going to go down here, and hopefully they have examples. Thank you. They have a simple example, but that's not going to be sufficient for us. So we're going to have to create repo, ECR repos. We'll need 2 of them. Okay, the first one is going to be called Python. And then the second one will be our app, okay? We need a little bit more configured than this. Maybe not, but we'll take a look. Because there are a few options here. We could have immutable tags, and generally it's recommended to always have immutable tags. But if you make a mistake, then you can't override the tag. But I think that's what I'd like to do here, is just do immutable, because that is the best practice. even though it's a little bit more inconvenient. And we'll just struggle through it if we have any issues, but I don't think it'll be too hard. So we'll go ahead and make that immutable. Okay, so those are both now immutable. And let's just carefully read through this and see if there's anything else we want. Image scanning is nice. I think there's an additional cost to that, so I don't really want to do that here today, but it's very easy to turn on. We have our encryption configuration, so we'll take a look at that. Again, don't care about that, so we'll leave that alone. What I care about is whether this will be a private or a public repo, so that's what I'm looking for. I think by default it is going to be private, but I'm not seeing any options there in this AWS CLI command, so I'm thinking that probably there's a separate thing to make it go public. Okay, so again, I'm not seeing that option there. But this is creating the repository. So remember that there's also a registry. So I'm just going to take a look here. And so I'm thinking maybe there's something we have to change to make it public. Again, I don't want it to be public, but I'm just saying like it's clearly not in that command. So let's go ahead and create these. Okay, so we'll create the first one, which is Python. Great. And what we'll do is we'll take a look here at ECR and we'll see what it's created for us. So we'll go to our repositories. Oh, and we are in CA Central 1, so just be mindful of what your default one is. That's where mine is, so that's where I have to go. And I have one from CDK earlier. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one. I want this one out of here. But here I have my Python repo. And so we have registries here, but I didn't create a public registry. So everything by default goes into the private, so that is good. So that looks fine, and we have encryption by default, so that is good. And so the reason we didn't include the whole name like this is because this will be the tag, right? So this is what we're images, and this is what we want to tag it with. So let's go ahead and prepare that next. Now, if you want to know like what all the commands are to push, if we click into, wait, why did it say switch here? No, I don't want to do scanning. Well, if you click onto the view push, it actually gives you all the options to log in. So what I'll do is copy the first one, and we'll bring this over into our README. And we'll go down here. I'll just say login to ECR. And so this is our command. And it already brought in my account number here, so I didn't have to do as much. And just to make this a little bit more readable for you, I'm just going to put in some backslashes here. You can't just copy paste this. You have to grab your own because it's not going to work because this one's specifically for me, right? So here you can see is that we're going to log into, we're going to get back an authorization token, and then we're going to pass it over to Docker login. So if we were just to grab this line here and we ran it, it should return back our token, right? So that's all it's doing is passing that authorization token over. Go ahead and clear that. And so what we'll do is run this. This will log us into ECR. Okay, and so that succeeded. If we go back over to container registry, we then build our image. So we've already built one for that one, but we are going to want to tag this. So we'll go back over to here. And so we'll say tag Python image. We don't need to build it because it's already downloaded. And so there should be a way to list all of the containers. Go here, Docker images, containers, say Docker images. It's not listing them all, -- help. And so I'm going to give it the -all flag. Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure if that container is actually downloaded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to pull it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this here. And we'll say pull, tag, and push Python image. So what I'm going to do here is just download it. I think it's just Docker push or pull. And I think that should download the this specific Python version. It says it already exists. Docker images. I'm going to just list it out here. And so now it shows up. And so that is its tag, and that is the repo name. And we don't need to build it because it's already built, but we are going to need to tag it. So we'll go to our next line here. Okay. And yes, there's the latest tag, but I'm actually more interested in this one in particular. So we'll go ahead and paste that in here. Right. And then I want to paste it in here as well. Because again, the tags are immutable, so we don't really want to set latest because then I don't think we'll be able to set it again. And so this looks okay to me. It's going to go to this particular location. So go ahead and copy that. We'll type in clear and we'll hit enter. And so this now has tagged it. And we'll go back over to here. We'll grab the next command. And this looks fine, except I want to swap out latest with this particular tag. Oops. We will copy that again. So let's say copy. And we will paste that. There we go. And we'll go ahead and copy this line. And we'll paste this in here and hit enter. And so now it is pushing this one here. So once it completes, we will then go check ECR. It shouldn't take too long. These are pretty darn small. And we'll go here and give this a refresh. And so here we have our image, and there it is. So now what I want to do is I actually want to reference this image in our original Docker container. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to go ahead and comment this one out so we know where it comes from at least. And I'll just type in from, and then I'll paste in this one up here. And so now you can see what we're doing here. And we'll just make a note that we'll say, we'll go back over to here. And we'll now just say build, tag, and push app container. So we'll just say update the Docker file to reference our Python image in ECR. So that's something that is a prerequisite I'm telling you to do. And so we're going to have something very similar here now. I don't know if I created this repo, so I'm going to go back here and just take a look. And if we go back to ECR here, into our repos. Oh, private repo, sorry, private. Yeah, we didn't create that one yet. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that one in. And so that will create our app, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. I'm going to go into this one here. I'm going to go to the view push commands, and we're just going to go ahead and copy all this stuff down here. And then we'll just do a little bit of modification before we do anything else here. We're already logged in, so we don't have to do that twice. But we do need to rebuild the image. And we just need these last two commands here. Okay. And so what I'm going to do here is just type it. Well, one thing I want to know is like, is the latest tag immutable in ECR? Because that's something I don't know. So it says, I want to restart tagging except for latest tag ECR. This is not possible. You either have enable immutability for tags, or it must be all tags mutable. And so that's what I was thinking. So I'm thinking that we are not going to be utilizing this latest tag, but there are services where they will always use latest. So if you're working with ECR, sorry, like ECS or Fargate and stuff like that, it'll be easier. And so you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking we should just actually delete this repo, make it again, and make it mutable. Because at least that way we're learning about both of them. But I just want to have less pain here. I want to have more convenience when teaching you the other section. So I'm going to just change this back to mutable here. And so I'll just do this instead. Okay, but in practice, you'd probably want in a production use case to make it immutable. But for this, we are just going to keep it simple. So this all should be the same. Nothing should have changed here. But I just want to make sure that new Docker image builds. We can do a new build, and I think that it should work. So go ahead and see what happens here. Also, just want to make sure that it's, I don't know if it actually went into the subdirectory here because it had a period, which makes me think it didn't do what I wanted it to do. So I'm just going to cd back a directory. Probably actually was okay with the way I was doing it. And what I want to see here is if it's using this one. So it's now referencing this one. Okay, so that's what I really cared about. Everything else is the same. They're cached, so it doesn't have to do anything special. So I think that's okay. But just in case, I'm just going to go ahead, Docker images. I'm just going to remove the last one here. I just don't trust it. So what I want to do here is just go ahead and delete this one. So say Docker image remove. And no matter how much I've used Docker, I always forget the command, so don't feel bad if you do. And this is now way too large, and I can't see my files. There we go. Say remove Docker image command, because I apparently can't remember it. Oh, it's Docker image. Maybe it's just image. Okay. Docker RMI. Let's try that. There we go. We'll say Docker list or images. And so now it is gone. I'm going to go ahead and rebuild that again. And we'll just say Docker images. It's caching it, so I don't think anything changed there. And so now what we can do is go ahead and push this. So go ahead and grab this line, and then we'll do this line. Now, just remember, if you come back to this and you need to rebuild the image, you will have to log in always first, okay? So this one is now being pushed. And so now in theory, we have this little application we can utilize for testing out all the different services. So hopefully that wasn't too difficult and you didn't mind doing a little bit of coding there, even though I didn't explain a lot. We'll just say ECR image example. And I will see you in the next one, okay? Ciao.